Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite show on the internet, Raw Law Unfiltered, with Remy Legal. Hi. I'm so happy to be streaming today. I was in the courtroom today for Baldwin while Larry was streaming, and he's hiding right now. Say
hi.
Hey. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm just letting you know in advance. I am really tired. It was a long day. We were there longer than I expected. It was, we were there from like 8:30 until 4. There were numerous breaks through the day. But I promise I'm going to bring as much energy and enthusiasm to this stream as possible. So let's see. What is going on? Says John Gold. Good question, John. What's going on is we're doing a stream to talk about what happened today in Baldwin. So we are here in New Mexico. We are here in Santa Fe. And I got the opportunity to go to the courthouse today. And we got to be part of the media pool. Now, there weren't very many people there today, just because today we did, pretrial motions. And for those of you who did not catch Larry's live streams earlier, today was all about getting everything, all of the housekeeping sort of sorted out, which is, the typical thing. You get pretrial motions, different motions in limine from the state, from the defense, and I took copious notes. I took my laptop, it died. I was live tweeting in the beginning. But there was a lot of pandemonium today in the courtroom, more than I expected, because there was a certain point towards the end. And I don't know if you guys all caught this, but for those of you following along, there was a point where it became apparent that the defense had some Brady and other sort of allegations that they were bringing up against the state. Maybe allegations isn't the right word, but they had complained that there was a lot of material that they had not been provided in discovery. There were redactions that were done in some documents, and Alec Baldwin's defense team felt that it was unfair that there were certain reports and communications that they were not privy to and that they had been asking for over a year, that they had only recently received. And they were sort of bringing this up to the judge saying, we feel that this information has been withheld from us intentionally. And so the judge was very unhappy with this, and she ended up calling an hour recess so that everybody could kind of, get their shit together and figure it out. And so, both teams met. They worked it out, thankfully. But for a second there, I think everybody in the courtroom kind of had this collective feeling of, are we going to have to come back to New Mexico? Because the judge was talking about scheduling a continuance. And that was a little bit unsettling. Thankfully, I don't think that that's going to happen, but it was sort of right up until the very end there. They were saying that they had worked it out, but she said, oh no, if you use this very specific language in your motion, then I'm going to make sure that this is a continuance. There were some significant problems, but anyway, it's been a really interesting day. I've never been to New Mexico before. The courthouse is absolutely beautiful. I recognized some of the media members. I got to say hi to Anjanette Levy, who was awesome. She was wearing these really fantastic, comfy looking pink shoes. We were talking about shoes for a minute. It was really great to see her. And she's like, aren't you Chandler Remington? She actually recognized me, which I thought was kind of cool. So that was my little star-studded celebrity moment. She's like, yeah, you're Larry's girlfriend. I saw that picture of you guys on the plane. So I didn't get a chance to say it to her at the time, but Anjanette, if you're watching this, I love the reporting you do. You're awesome. And it was fantastic to meet you today. I also had a really great little moment with a lovely woman from, I believe she was with NBC. She actually had a spare notebook that she just gave to me, which was so nice of her. So I had the opportunity to take really great notes after my laptop ran out of battery. So I'm learning lessons about how you do this sort of thing. It's been kind of a trip so far. But in any case, that's my little intro. I'm kind of giving you guys just a bit of a rundown, and I want to see who's in chat. I see we have a lot of people showing up to say hi. Lady Autumn Sky, thank you so much to our wonderful mods for being here for this fantastic stream. This has been a really interesting experience. I think you all know last time when we went to Boston, I was not able to be in the courtroom really. Larry got to go one day, which was really cool, but I was a little bit bummed out because I wanted to be there to see the action. And this time around, we get to go, we get a seat, and we get to kind of alternate and switch off. And tomorrow, there is not going to be a live court feed because it's voir dire. They're picking from a pool of about 79 people. And we're going to go, I think they have about an hour for each side. So we are going to get there tomorrow, and Larry and I are going to both be in court, and that's going to be really exciting. He just streamed today. He didn't get a chance to go down to the courthouse. So I think we're going to have a fantastic time, and I'm really excited. So welcome to you all. Is there, before I move forward, I'm just curious if anybody has any questions about today that they'd like me to answer. I'd be very happy to share with you guys. I have my notes. For anybody who wants sort of the breakdown, because I know it was maybe a little bit difficult to follow today. All of these different motions that were filed, they were, motions in limine from both sides. A lot of them had to do with different kinds of evidence that were being brought up. There were some interesting things about the producer theory. I learned a lot about the Baldwin case, and I learned a lot about sort of how the state wants to present things, where the defense is at, the different frustrations. And it was fascinating as somebody who wants to go to law school in the future, somebody who wants to become an attorney, to see how everything comes together. You think the most interesting stuff starts with like opening arguments and everything. No, the pretrial motions are actually fascinating. But it can be a little difficult to follow if you're not super honed in on what's happening with this case, because there are a lot of details. There's an entire timeline. You have to know the players. Much like with any court case, it can be kind of hard to follow along. So I'm happy to do a rundown for you all. I see somebody saying morning from Australia. Good morning. We have Allie Riddell in the house. I'm the Sky saying, glad you both get to go to court. Me too. They only have one seat basically. So the way that it works is like you sign up for your whole media thing, and you get one seat basically per news organization. So one member of that news organization can attend at a time. There is an overflow room. You are not allowed to have your phone with you at all if you want to be in the courtroom. Today, they kind of let it slip a little bit. Like, people definitely came in with their phones, and there was this guy going around and kind of reminding everybody, put that away. You're not supposed to use it. But come tomorrow when they hand out press passes, if you have your phone with you, you're going to get kicked out of the courtroom. So it's very serious. I left my phone today, and I had to figure out my navigation and everything. It's been a while since I have been without my phone, and life is a lot easier with it, I have to say. But yeah, I've just kind of been catching up on everything that's been happening. I know there were lots of developments in the Karen Reed case today. I totally missed all of that because there was a lot happening in the courtroom today. But I would say there was a lot of really interesting, fiery argumentation from both sides. The state and the defense, they have some great attorneys who are very passionate in terms of the way that they make their arguments. So I liked kind of seeing their style a little bit. I did not watch the Hannah Reed Gutierrez case except for the verdict. And so I don't really know a lot about any of the players. And I haven't really seen this judge. Some of you were saying that she is not your favorite judge. Larry really likes her. I like her so far. But I know she also worked on the Reed Gutierrez case, and so I'm curious if you all like this judge, what you think of her, and how you all are feeling about this trial so far, because it's kind of a sleepy start, but I think it's definitely going to get exciting and interesting. Let's see. Billy Marie says, I like her. Yeah. And Catch at 13 says, careful, Larry, we can see your shadow. And you're welcome to join me at any time if you would like.
I am not here. This is Chandler's show. Chandler Remington is in control. All control defaults to Chandler.
He's been streaming all day, and so I kind of want to give him a break. I love streaming, and I love when you stream, and obviously everybody, comes to your channel for you, but I'm happy to, to fill in a little bit. I see Sheila Lemon saying, hello from, I believe that is Elk, Washington. Hello. This is just a really exciting experience. I don't know exactly what it is. I had an interesting conversation with my Uber driver this morning who was talking about this case, and he was saying, oh, I'm really glad that it's not downtown because I live downtown and there's going to be terrible traffic. It turned out it was downtown and I ended up getting an Uber to the wrong courthouse. So that was an interesting way to start the day. Thankfully, I was only a couple minutes late. Is Larry talking to the walls again? No, he's talking to all of you, obviously.
Oh, that's a joke about the judge today. What? Who said that? Huh?
Oh, yeah.
What?
There was some moment in the courtroom where the judge kind of, I guess I missed that when I was there. But apparently she had a little moment where she was kind of
a little off.
A little, it seemed like a long day for this judge. I mean, she wanted to get everything over and done with really early. And I could tell that she was getting kind of impatient, and she was a little frazzled. Just my take on what I observed, because I think that she expected there to be less to go over, and both the state and the defense had a lot of motions, a lot of material. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be going through my brand new notebook, and I'm going to be looking through my notes and sharing things that are of note with you all if you are interested. State of New Mexico versus Alexander Ray Baldwin, who, the funny thing is, I was so excited to be there. I did not see the front of people at all. I only saw the back of people's heads for the most part. I didn't even realize that Alec Baldwin was in the courtroom all day. I thought he showed up later. I thought he showed up later in the day because somebody was like, oh, Baldwin's in there right now. And I thought that was like a big, exciting thing. But no, apparently I was sitting behind him, like, feet away from him for the entire duration of the day. And I had no idea, which, he's Alec Baldwin. It's interesting, I guess. I was more excited to meet Anjanette Levy, to be quite honest with you all. But let's see. So here's what I've learned about this case. You might know all of this already. You might be learning these facts brand new. So I'm just going to share with you what I wrote down. I learned that this is going to be an 8-day trial. We have about 44 fact witnesses. We have about 13 expert witnesses and 4 medical experts. Some of the witnesses are going to change based on today's motions in limine. And the defense argued that the defense was very unhappy today because they were basically arguing that the state was not revealing to them the order of the witnesses that they were calling. And the defense also claimed to not have access to certain aspects of discovery, including, I'm trying to remember, there was a very particular report that they claimed to not have access to. And so defense is trying to figure out, how are we going to put on our case if we don't know the order that these witnesses are going to be called in? And this almost led to a continuance. So I'm very glad that it didn't. I'm very glad that the trial is going to proceed as expected and anticipated. But that was kind of stressful for a minute there because it seemed as though everything was just about to go out the window. The defense argued that there were some necessary witnesses. We have Brian Carpenter and Kent Jorgensen specifically were the subjects of today's motions in limine, largely because these are the onset safety experts. And I believe these are, I'm trying to remember if they're state witnesses or I'm pretty sure they are state witnesses. Defense had a problem essentially, especially with Mr. Jorgensen being called, particularly because of his level of expertise. Also, if I'm getting any of these facts wrong or any of these details, incorrect, it's just because I'm a little tired. Feel free to point it out in the chat and let me know if I'm getting anything incorrect. I'm happy to correct myself. But according to my understanding, we have a number of fact witnesses who were subjects of motions in limine, especially including a man named Pieta. He is coming from Italy, and he is actually part of the manufacturing team for the weapon that was discharged. He is supposed to show up as a fact witness, and there were arguments today about whether or not he could be called as an expert witness. The judge argues and ruled that he could not be called as an expert witness, only as a fact witness, because essentially he is there to say that when the gun left the factory, it was in perfect condition, it was inspected, it was perfectly fine. The defense argues that 4 years later, we don't know what happened to the gun. And the defense believes that something happened to the gun, that the gun malfunctioned. But interestingly, there are going to be a lot of videos that are going to come up. And this was another subject of motions in limine. This was before my laptop died, so I don't have any handwritten notes on this. But what I found fascinating, what I tweeted about today, was that there are a number of videos, apparently, of Baldwin playing with the gun, using it to point at things, firing it, kind of, doing various things with this gun, showing that it was in proper working order and that he was being reckless with it, which goes to a pattern of wanton and willful misconduct. I have been interested in this case since Eric Hunley brought it up on Laid Back Law. And for those of you who have seen me on Laid Back Law a while ago, several months ago, I've been appearing on Laid Back Law regularly. It's a great channel. Eric Hunley and Nate the Lawyer run it together, and they are very interested in the Rust shooting. And so they've been discussing it for a while, and we've been, and I learned a lot of the details about this case through them. And one of my main arguments from the beginning, because I grew up in Hollywood, basically, is that the fact that Alec Baldwin was a producer, he had a role that put him in a position where he was responsible for the safety of people on set. And to my surprise, today, that came up in motions in limine. It came up as part of the argument that the state wanted to make. Now, the judge ruled against this. The judge essentially ruled we are not going to use his producer role. We can only really refer to him having the role of actor in terms of his negligence, because he was in the role of an actor when the shooting occurred, when the accident occurred. And even though he had the producer background, that does not go towards the actual charges in this case. Now, I personally disagree with this because there is a reason why this case is such a big deal. People don't die from on-set accidents very often. You can count on one hand how many incidents like this have occurred. You have The Crow, where Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, died. You have the Midnight Rider case, which is something that I actually worked for an attorney who represented the director of that film and wrote to the judge on his behalf. And then there's the Twilight Zone case, the accident with the actor and the children who were mortally wounded by a helicopter. There are so many on-set provisions and safety protocols that makes it almost impossible for an accident like this to occur. It should not occur. It should never occur. The fact that this happened means that something went terribly wrong. So my opinion from the beginning has been that they skirted a lot of safety guidelines. They went around and used all of these loopholes. They shot in New Mexico specifically to get tax breaks, to save money, and that Alec Baldwin was very involved in the decisions that were made on the set of this film. There was an environment that was created where people were being stretched really thin and they could not do their jobs properly. And now it has come out today, I'm learning that Hannah Gutierrez, everybody could see that she did not do her job very well. And everybody was concerned about it except for Alec Baldwin. At least that's what the state is going to argue. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the state puts on their case. I did sit on the defense side today just because it was interesting to kind of, be looking at what they were doing over there. And, I couldn't really see anything, but it was interesting to be sitting from that vantage point. But I'm with the state on this one. I personally feel that he should be held responsible for his actions, especially since Hannah Gutierrez has been found guilty of, I believe, manslaughter. And so we're in this position now where, his lawyers are very good. I can see that they are impassioned with their arguments. They won and lost about equal numbers of motions today. But I think overall, the state has a lot of ammunition against Baldwin. And I used the word ammunition. I didn't intend for that, but it is a little ironic. I think that the state has some excellent arguments, and I can see why the judge ruled against certain things today, but I think that the producer theory should have been allowed in, essentially, because when you are a producer on a film set and you are privy to the entire setup and you know the safety protocols and you know the guidelines, you should be held responsible if there is an accident. I want to see how this all shakes out, but I think that the state should be able to make other arguments in different ways. So let's see here. We have, Ron Duncan saying hello from Albuquerque. It's an interesting trial for sure. We're not too far from Albuquerque. Let's see. Another lie with Chandler. It's only July and it's already Christmas. Well, thank you, Zuernard. That's really cute. I love that. Let's see. Dabob03 says gun control advocates are like broken clocks, marginally and rarely useful, and you don't depend on them for true information. Very interesting comment. Now, Marilyn is saying something interesting here. She's saying that Alec is on trial because he's the one with the deep pockets. Now, Marilyn, I don't know exactly what your position is, but I do agree with you. The fact is that he did fund and finance this film. As a producer, that was his role. Now, unfortunately, it's more than just having deep pockets. I think you might be making an argument that, well, you know, he has more money and therefore there are more damages to be recouped. But it's a criminal trial and he's on trial because he broke the law, because, you know, he engaged in reckless misconduct, or so the state is going to argue. A woman died because of this man, and there were other people certainly who contributed to her death. But at the same time, you know, I have a lot of problems with certain things that I'm learning in this case. Like today, for example, I learned that Alec Baldwin changed his story. He had originally said that it was Helena Hutchins. No, I'm sorry, pardon me. He had originally said that it was Joel Souza, the director, who was also injured, who had instructed him on where to point the gun during that fatal incident. Later, he changed his story and said that it was Helena Hutchins who said this. This came up as another subject of the motions in limine. And there were many witnesses who claimed, no, Helena never directed him. She never made any statements of that nature. It was Joel Souza who was the one who was directing him. And so he's changing his story that first it was Joel, now it's Helena. And that's very unfortunate. I don't know exactly what that's about, but if you are accusing the victim of your crime, who cannot speak for herself, who is now deceased, of being the one responsible for her own demise, that, you know, she's the one who said, point the gun this way, and that's what I did, and now she died, that's her fault. It's a little sketchy to me. I have a problem with that because there are a lot of witnesses. There were, more than 150 people, I believe, who were on set who can vouch for the fact that she was not giving those kinds of directions. And this came up as sort of a, you know, is this hearsay? Is this an exception to the hearsay rule? And I believe that the judge eventually ruled that this would be an issue for the jury. She thought it was relevant, but that it could come in. So there's, I mean, we have a lot of moving parts. I'm trying to look through and see what else is interesting here. There were some other motions in limine. This one was the state's motion in limine to prohibit double hearsay in the CAD reports. And this had to do essentially with hearsay upon hearsay, statements that the state had made. This wasn't the interesting part. There was something very interesting. There was one point that I found fascinating where the defense cited something that the state had put together, and it was a report about the incident. They said that they could use this against the state because they said, well, the state is saying things that are contradictory to other things that they've said. Then the state gets up there and they go, well, we fired that guy that wrote the probable cause affidavit. And, you know, and we disavow the way that this was written. That's kind of an issue, don't you think?
Yeah.
This was under Rule 1450-20. This was the instruction. Right, it was what I was just talking about with Alec Baldwin practicing drawing, with guidance from both Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza. And so essentially with all of this, the motion was denied. so the judge will allow it in. Oh my gosh, we have 1,079 people concurrently watching. Thank you everybody for being here. And it's times like this, I really wish that I had more legal knowledge and more expertise to bring to you all. I'm glad that I have my paralegal training and I know some rules of evidence. I know what Brady is. I know essentially what some of the abbreviations are. But I'm very glad to have a lawyer with me who can help interpret some of these things. So he's going to look through my notes and he's going to help me make sense of some of the things that I have written down. But I did learn about some interesting case law. I like the way that they made arguments today about, the way they were using Montoya, which has to do with, this was an argument they were trying to make at a certain point about inconsistent factual assertions that were made between cases. Basically, the defense was saying, look, we have the state saying things that are inconsistent between the Gutierrez case and the Baldwin case, and we want to bring it up and use it against the state, and we want the jury to know about it. And the state said, hold up, you are taking this out of context. These are two completely different defendants, and Montoya doesn't really apply here. And so now I want to go and read this case law. This is, for those of you who are as interested in law as I am, but who aren't lawyers, there are a lot of opportunities here to read up on case law and see where this all applies. It's pretty fascinating. So it should be very interesting to see where they go with Alessandra Pieta and the gun, which appeared broken in full cock. They said, that's what I wrote down. The condition of the gun when it left the factory. We are going to, I think they had some witnesses that they had ruled out. There was just a lot of information. It was very, very dense, but a lot was happening. It was fascinating. It was a lot less plotting than I thought that it was going to be. Let me see. Where should I go from here? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, what do your notes say? What kind of notes have you taken?
Well,
tell us. I'm curious. I want to know.
Well, I'm getting to the point now where I wrote about the potential Brady violations, but I think I already went over that. And this is, I think, a really big question is, did the state willfully withhold information from defense counsel, or did they not? And this is something that can come up pretty frequently. Of course, it is a Brady violation to withhold evidence that could be exculpatory or inculpatory from the defense if you are the prosecution. However, there's all this redacted material that they got. They're saying that they want to see it without the redactions, and the state is saying, well, these are privileged communications between, paralegals and, and the defendant, and you are not privy to this. And so that was what they took an hour this afternoon to work out. And this is when everybody thought, oh, here we go again. There's going to be a continuance. We're all going to have to fly home, and then we're going to have to wait for another event. The judge was very annoyed because she's like, I want to go to trial tomorrow, and I'm not, and she basically got really frustrated at a certain point, actually at numerous points with the defense. And she was like, if she's like, you're not asking for a continuance, and you need to spit it out and ask for continuance. But they said, no. We don't want a continuance. She's coming at them with this very, so you're asking for 4 things, and there are these 4 different points. It was kind of a cluster. I'm just glad that we don't have to go home because I really want to see this play out. And for what it is worth, not that this is fascinating or anything, but Baldwin seemed like he was in very good spirits. He seemed, to be very, he has a great team of attorneys who are working very diligently to poke as many holes in this case as possible. And I'm kind of on the edge of my seat because it's really strange for me. I do think that he's responsible, and I do think that he should be held responsible legally and criminally. But I also am very much of, a due process kind of gal. Like, I do think that people deserve the right to a fair trial. And so coming into this with the mentality, like, yes, he deserves to be convicted of this, it's not typical for me. It's just, I've seen too much basically with the film industry and understanding how all of those safety protocols are put into place. I know they skirted around them. I know that they weren't careful. I know that they did it to be cheap, and somebody lost her life as a result. And I feel a lot of pain for this family. So I don't know if what happened with Hannah Gutierrez Reed is really going to be enough for them. I know that they settled a civil suit. I'm not sure how much for, but it's very hard coming into a case like this because ethically and morally, you know, it's hard to be put in this position. It's the excitement of a criminal trial. It's the excitement of, you know, there's this celebrity on trial and it's a big deal. But this is also somebody's life. You know, this was a terrible, tragic accident that occurred. And so now the jury is going to, you know, after we pick the jury, they're going to have to decide, was this really truly an accident, or was there willful negligence that led us to this place? And how do we hold those parties responsible? So I'm sorry I'm not really reading chat very much. My eyes are quite fatigued. It's been a long day. I've been squinting at my notebook here for a while. But I'm going to try and take a look through here and see if we have anything. Eye in the Sky says, I grew up around guns, and the first thing that you learn is that you never pointed at somebody. That is correct. There are going to be witnesses that are going to testify to sort of like the SAG-AFTRA guidelines. There was one witness in particular who they kept going back and forth about, you know, does this guy have the expertise? Does he not? I believe this was Kent Jorgensen. I might not be pronouncing that correctly. But this is a guy who, you know, the defense is saying he doesn't really have any expertise. But he worked for OSHA. So his whole background is about safety and guidelines in the workplace. He worked for IATSE, which is a theatrical union. And he said something akin to, you know, I got a seat at the kids' table, which means I get to know what, you know, I get to observe the adults in the room. So defense is basically saying, you know, this guy, he's never been a producer, doesn't know what he's talking about, because he's going to testify to some things basically saying that, you know, Baldwin was reckless and that he was irresponsible and that he made certain decisions that created a hostile environment and an unsafe and negligent environment that allowed this accident to occur. I believe that there was like a grand jury about this. There was an inquisition. So I'm looking forward to his testimony. And I think finally the state and the defense, they worked it out. So now we know, you know, they've been waiting to hear, well, what's your order of witnesses going to be? Now we finally, you know, they have exchanged that information. So hopefully everything will go smoothly. My brain is just going, I just hope both teams have fun, which I know is really dumb. Because I don't have a dog in this fight. I could change my mind. I could look at this and, you know, change my mind entirely and go, oh, wow, no, Baldwin is, you know, he does not deserve to be put in this position. There are a lot of people, in my opinion, who look at this and they go, well, he's a rich celebrity and he deserves to pay for that because I'm not a rich celebrity and he's famous and good looking. And, you know, I hate people like that and I'm jealous of him. I mean, people do really think like this, you know, but if you take all of that out of it, his behavior was still absolutely reckless. And what it comes down to is, does it meet the standard? Does it meet the burden criminally? That is all you have to answer. You have to remove the guy from it. You have to think, this is just some regular Joe Schmo. This is just some dude. We don't know his name. We've never seen his face. He's just some boring average dude. Anybody acting like this, would we convict him? And unfortunately, you're not really going to get a lot of One of the other things that's going to come up in voir dire tomorrow, since you guys aren't really going to get to look in on that, I know this is a question that was brought up. They're talking about it today, is do any of you have any particular bias towards or against Mr. Baldwin? And it's kind of like the Trump trials, like when somebody's a famous, well-known actor or a well-known celebrity, people are going to have opinions on that person, whether they are based in fact or not. Those aspects might be very difficult to overcome. And so the jury is going to have to answer, you know, whether they are biased towards or against this man. There are 79 jurors, so hopefully they'll be able to narrow that down and find some of those jurors, you know, potential jurors who can say, no, I don't have any bias towards or against him. And I think that's only reasonable and fair. That's the way that it should be. Michael Carter asks, why did anyone let Mr. Baldwin have possession of a real firearm if he never attended the crew safety handling meeting? That's a good question. I mean, my answer to that question would be he's a producer and he can do whatever he wants, and the power that he wields is very significant. They argued today about the fact that Alec had been on another set of a film 2 years after Helena Hutchins' tragic death. And he's in Montana and he's filming something. And he had egregiously, this is the word that the state used, he had egregiously refused to follow safety guidelines on that film set. The defense comes back with, well, there were no guns involved, there on that set. So it's not relevant. It doesn't matter. And this ended up going to 403 character evidence, and the judge ruled against including this. And I do think that it is more prejudicial than probative. But there's something there that this man clearly has not learned. And the fact that he thinks that he can kind of just do whatever he wants, even after his behavior killed somebody. I really wonder at this point, his reputation in Hollywood, who would hire him? Who would work with him? Because he just got a show greenlit to look into his family life, because he has this big family and it's like Life with the Baldwins. And, obviously the Baldwins are a very powerful and influential Hollywood family. He's been an A-lister for decades and his name still carries a lot of weight, even with this tragedy. There are a lot of people who have cut ties with him, I'm sure, but there are a lot of people who still defend him. And I take huge issue with learning that about him today, that he goes onto another film set. There are safety regulations and he does not follow them with military-like precision. Subsequent bad acts was the argument for including that. And unfortunately, because it was character evidence, it did not come in. And I agree with the ruling, but I do wish that the jury could know about that, because I think that tells you something, unfortunately, about the kind of person that we're dealing with. Somebody who is kind of an egomaniac, who thinks that he can do whatever he wants, and who does not really comprehend or appreciate the gravity of his actions. I used to be a little more neutral about this, and now I feel very strongly that he should be made an example of. And so that is my very, very biased opinion. Now, this is my first time really being a journalist. Somebody came up to me in the courtroom and they said, "Are you a journalist?" And I said, "Yes, because I am. I'm with the media. I'm a named media member. I have a media seat. Larry and I both, can come into the courtroom with our little tag we're going to get tomorrow, our little, press pass. And that's very exciting. And I appreciate the opportunity to report on this. But it's going to be hard because, journalists are supposed to be unbiased, and I'm rather biased. I've seen too much, and everybody in LA who I know, every actor who I was friends with at the time that this happened, when I was living there, all of them were just shaking their heads going, how did this happen? This is never supposed to happen, because as everybody knows who's ever worked on the film set, the rules are so stringent. There are so many hoops that you have to jump through. The set of a film is extremely tightly regulated to prevent things like this from happening. There are so many regulations about, child labor laws and, nudity, and putting certain actors in kind of precarious situations. You have to sign so many contracts. There has to be so much. There's a lot of red tape. It's very bureaucratic. And this is what happened on the set of, I said Midnight Rider, but I think I meant Midnight Cowboy. In 2013, I believe, when Sarah Jones got hit by a train. They didn't do their due diligence, and I believe she was a boom mic operator on this set. They're filming in Georgia. One of the members of that set, she got grievously injured, and it was because they cut corners. They were not careful. This is what happens when you're reckless. You need to be very diligent. So, this is why you have to go through all of the protocol, and I believe in that very, very strongly. Marilyn Otto says, I don't know what his charges are, but I don't believe that it was entirely his fault. Now, Marilyn, I don't believe that it was entirely his fault either. She says, I've been in positions where I've had to depend on the honesty of others, and I believe that is what he did here. I appreciate that. And we have a question from Zu Bernard. Are you even allowed to have real rounds on a set. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. No, you're not. It is against the safety protocols. It's against the SAG regulations. Live rounds should absolutely never, ever, ever, ever come in to a film set. If you bring any kind of weaponry on set, it is absolutely, absolutely against the rules. And it's extremely dangerous. But the problem is that SAG guidelines are not the law. So SAG stands for Screen Actors Guild, and it is the union that regulates the way that a film is run. It's something that regulates how many hours you're allowed to work. It regulates, getting meal breaks. It's a union, basically. So it protects actors and stunt people and things like that. So anybody who works on a film set, they are going to be subject to the rules of SAG. But if you break those rules, some of them can be followed up legally and some of them can't. And so bringing live rounds onto a set, it's not that it's frowned upon. It's that it's not done, essentially, because that is the power that SAG holds, but it's also not illegal. So that's the challenge that we're working with here. Everybody kind of agrees we are not going to put people in this precarious situation. It's far too stupid, because everybody who works on a film set is aware that if something goes wrong, if some danger or negligence occurs, if somebody gets hurt, that is a lawsuit. You don't want to be involved in that. It will shut down your production. It will be a massive waste of energy, time, and money. It will ruin your reputation and your career. Just coming from a reputation standpoint, you have to be very vigilant. So people follow the rules, but not in this case. And so that's the challenge. The SAG regulations are very clear. But if you are working in New Mexico instead of California, the laws are different. And there's a lot of evidence that they went to New Mexico specifically to skirt the rules. Let's see. And government is slavery. Says, strange how he wants to be known as an actor, director in Hollywood, but in court he wants to be just an actor. Yeah, that's the challenge, because my problem with the actor-producer argument, so he wasn't a director, my friend. He and I appreciate what you're saying. I think you mean actor slash producer. So his role as producer meant that he was financing the film. And this is the issue. Alec Baldwin was not just an actor on that set. When you're a producer in a film, you are calling the shots financially and otherwise. You are making decisions about where you film, what locations you are scouting, how the scheduling goes, how the hiring process goes. You are in charge of a lot of things that directly lead to the well-being of your cast and crew. You're responsible for taking care of your cast and crew. Just like if you run a law firm, and anybody that you hire, you are responsible for paying them a fair wage. You're responsible for protecting them, any kind of work scenario. He's not on the same footing as any other actor on that set. He's not just an actor. He has a significant power differential. He can't just be an actor. He can't just step away from that producer role, especially because his vested financial interest in the film and his decision-making really puts him above everybody else. And so that's the challenge there. He's not just some actor. People are going to be intimidated and daunted into doing the things that he wants, even if they're not comfortable with it. There were people walking off that set who felt uncomfortable with the lack of safety regulations. And that's going to be part of testimony in this case. So it's going to be heavy, it's going to be intense, but I think this is going to be a very interesting trial. And I'm going to be learning a lot about it as I go along. Larry will too. And we're both very much looking forward to reporting to you guys and letting you all know. Now, since tomorrow, we are not going to be allowed to bring our phones into the courtroom. I believe that we can have laptops, so we might be able to tweet and let you guys know what's going on. But during voir dire, it's not going to be televised. So tomorrow is probably going to be reported, and you're not going to get to watch it through Law and Crime or Court TV. So we're just going to be there watching, and it's going to be fascinating. Let's see. Oh, and we have a super chat. Thank you so much to Dan Davis for the $5 super chat. Dan says, everyone has ignored safety protocol at least once in their life. Prove me wrong. That's true, Dan, but just because you ignore safety protocol doesn't mean somebody ends up dying as a result. Now, in this case, not only did somebody end up dying, somebody else got grievously wounded as a result. The director, Joel Souza, he didn't die, but he was very badly injured. And so ignoring safety protocol, you have to always assume the gun is loaded. You have to always assume, you know, I could kill somebody with this. That's why you never point it at anybody or in their direction. This is why armorers need to be well trained. And this is why you can't cut corners on a film set where you are using prop guns. So I appreciate the mentality, but this is the kind of thinking that got everybody in this predicament in the first place. It wasn't just Alec. There were definitely other individuals on that set. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, for example, who contributed to this wanton and reckless environment with all of this danger and lack of awareness, but it kind of snowballed. And so now we're here. We can't do the producer theory, but let's see what the state is going to argue. Let's see what they come up with. I have a feeling it's going to be really hard to get an unbiased jury, but I'm looking forward to observing them tomorrow. And I'm especially looking forward to seeing what Larry thinks about the jury makeup and their response, because you all know his specialty is jury analysis and observation. And I learn a lot from him every time he shares those things with me. So
Aww.
In that case, we are at about 46 minutes. I think I'm going to wrap this up here. And I really appreciate to everybody who has joined. Oh, we have 1,518 people watching collectively across platforms. Thank you all so much for being here. Before I sign off, since this is the DUI Guy Plus channel, DUI Guy, do you have anything that you want to say to your audience?
Sure.
Come over.
Hey, you did great.
Thanks. But talk to them. You know.
How are you guys doing? They saw me all day today. They wanted to see you. They wanted to hear from you because you were in the courtroom.
Well, I wasn't just gonna hang up the phone without being like, you know, say hi to Grandma.
Oh, it's okay. They don't mind. Right, chat?
See, they're saying hi, Larry.
Did you all have fun? Did you enjoy Chandler's synopsis of today? I think this was like the best live that you have ever done.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not just saying that?
Mm-mm.
I appreciate it.
Because not only was Chandler in court, she got a chance to, for the first time, come along and see how the sauce is made, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got to see a little bit of it like right before in the beginning of Karen Reed, but that was before anything really happened. So
You just did a 45-minute recap of the events of today.
Well, I hope you guys were interested and entertained. I hope that I informed you.
That was incredible.
I hope I taught you something. I hope you learned something, like Larry likes to say.
DeBob03 has a great question. Who's got DUI Kitty? I hope she has learned to take care of herself because nobody's watching her. She's
very self-sufficient.
She might die of starvation. I mean, does she have opposable thumbs? I forgot to ask her before we left.
I don't know. She's just so sassy and so independent. You got we have our neighbors looking after her. She's fine.
She's fine. She's totally
fine. We have some neighbors who they want to adopt a kitty, and so they have very generously offered to play with her and refill her her food and her water and look after her. So what was that?
Go ahead, continue.
So she's in very, very good hands, and we miss her. But honestly, it's nice to take a little break because she's been waking us up super early in the morning and not letting us get any sleep.
Truth.
Which she's like a toddler basically. We love her, but it's nice to have a little vacation from DUI Kitty.
Definitely.
So we have another super chat that I will click on when the mouse finally works. Darkborn says, Larry, seeing you two together reminds me of a saying from one of my football coaches. You outkicked your coverage on that one. I don't know what that means. I hope it's good.
It sounds good. It sounds like she, like you did a better job than I ever could.
I don't think that's true, but Look, I'm just I'm just a big fan of trials. And I told somebody recently, she's like, what do you like to do for fun? And I'm like, well, I go with my boyfriend to, we fly out of state and we go and we sit and we watch these big famous trials. And she was like, I thought I'd heard everything, but that's a new one for me. That's an interesting hobby to have. It's so much fun, you guys. I can't explain. I don't know why. I hate to put it in those terms because this is very serious. This is very somber. But court is my sport. And I'm glad that I met somebody who is as fascinated by the process as I am. And hopefully one day watching all of this will lead me to the opportunity to be a great litigator myself. I'll learn something from this experience. So
Definitely.
thanks for bringing me.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah. We weren't sure if we were going to go together. At first I was, Larry was going to go and I was going to stream from home. We talked about it and he was like, okay, I guess.
She talked me into it. I was like, you want to go? Let's go.
I'm glad we did because this is really exciting, and I'm glad we get to go tomorrow. So
yeah, tomorrow we're going to be in court tomorrow together. Did you tell him that already?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So no stream tomorrow, unfortunately, but we will do a recap at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, approximately. Don't hold me to it, but I'm going to try around that time.
Right, and I believe James from Ford is going to be coming in on Wednesday, so that'll be fantastic.
Well, I was on the phone with him again earlier after I got off the live. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to meeting him. He's he made it work. To his credit, like he kind of was just like, all right, I'm coming to New Mexico, flying by the seat of his pants. And I really like James. We actually had like talked on Twitter a while ago, and now I'm finally getting to meet him. So that'll be really fun. He's just such a sweet guy. So, and you guys like shared a room in did you share a hotel?
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
In Murdaugh or oh no, that didn't happen.
We don't no.
No, but Larry and James are good friends.
I'm joking.
They met
They
during
know.
Death.
They've seen it.
So just he's a homie for sure.
Yeah.
It's always nice to to get to spend time with people who are similarly passionate about this weird thing that we love so much.
I'm excited to get the band back together. Yeah,
it should be fantastic. So thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening at which time?
Somewhere between 6 and 7 p.m. Mountain, probably.
Yes. And we look forward to updating you. Please keep an eye on both of our X accounts. Follow
Lots of tweets tomorrow.
Follow us both on X and make sure that you've liked this video. Make sure that you are subscribed, that you're getting notifications. We are still getting videos out pretty much every day. Oh, yes, and comment below. Please help feed the algorithm.
Actually, comments don't help the algorithm.
Well, just comment anyway. We like reading your comments. It's a lot of fun for us. I mean, let them comment. They like commenting.
No, yeah, comments are good. Keep commenting. Yes, absolutely.
We both learn a lot from your comments. We read them together, and there's a lot of fun stuff we do with that. Larry was lost without you today, Chandler. Really? Oh, that's so.
Well, I was sitting, and they were like, "Is that Chandler?" And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "Well, what was she wearing?" And I'm like, "Well, I usually know what she's not wearing. I don't know what she is."
Anyway, I asked him before I left the house, or the hotel rather. I was like, "Do you like my outfit?" And he looked at it, and
I did, but it didn't register.
And then he completely forgot what I was wearing. And then he told me to stop looking down. And it turned out to be one of the defense attorneys who was sitting in front of me, who has like a similar colored hair. And I'm like, you'd think you would know what your own girlfriend looks like by now, but
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of resemblance and semblance, in my defense.
Well, she's very pretty, so I'm flattered, but it all worked out.
Yes, it did.
All right, I've been trying to sign off for a little while now, and our numbers continue to grow. And that's fabulous. I'm really enjoying this. I can't decide what I've liked better today, whether I liked being in the courtroom better or streaming with you all. And I appreciate you all engaging in chat. I'm sorry I'm not more interactive with chat. Like I said, my eyes are just blurring. I cannot read a single thing that you all are saying because I'm that tired. But we're going to get a really good night of sleep. We are 2 hours ahead. So it's like, what time? It's like 11:30 for us right now. So we're gonna get some dinner.
9:30. No, that clock is Eastern time.
Oh, okay. It's 9:30.
Yeah.
We're gonna rest,
and recuperate,
and then tomorrow's gonna be a really fun day. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, and until next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.